I've said that some people will tell you that the purpose of life is to be happy, and those people are idiots, and it was a bit of a rough statement, but what I meant by that, it was actually inspired by a statement by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, who was the great critic of the Soviet prison system, and he commented that happiness is something that's done in by the first harsh blow that reality deals you, and I believe this to be the case. There are many circumstances in life where happiness is not only the wrong response, but also where the expectation of happiness as a response will put you, the person attempting to be happy, in absolutely the wrong psychological state to be prepared for what must be done. People are built, so to speak, to experience a very wide range of motivational and emotional states that only bear a tenuous relationship to one another. And the reason for that is that the environment that human beings inhabit is so complex that our adaptation depends on a variety of very finely differentiated responses. And so there is a time to be compassionate, and there's a time to be aggressive, and there's a time to be in pain, and there's a time to be anxious, and there's a time to be joyous, and a time to be satisfied. And the healthy and well-adapted person has a very wide range of finely differentiated responses, which cannot be boiled down to a single dimension, say happiness versus unhappiness. Life is not that simple. And if it was, we'd only have one emotional system. Making happiness the focal point of your life trivializes your experiences, because in order to regard anything as truly important, you also have to regard its loss as truly meaningful. And that means that to open yourself up to experiences of deep meaning also simultaneously means that you have to open yourself up to the possibility of deep hurt and sorrow. It's something strange that I've observed with my students, is that when I state the proposition to them clearly that life is suffering and that the purpose of life is not happiness, they actually experience that as a great relief. And the reason I believe that they experience it as a great relief is they already know it. You know, even if they wouldn't necessarily articulate that, their experience has taught them that life is complex and tragic and difficult. And the problem with the public portrayal of the ideal state of humanness as happiness is that it makes all of these people, these young people, feel ashamed of their own suffering. They feel that if they're suffering and if they find their life tragic in its essence, that means that there's something wrong with them. And instantly that makes it impossible for them to communicate anything real about their own tragedy. And so it appears to me that the price we pay for being is suffering. And then the issue there, and I believe that this is what the greater religious traditions of the world have been attempting to elucidate, is that the purpose of life, given that, is to identify and follow a mode of being that makes life justifiable, even given the radical necessity of suffering. If you're constantly in a state of placidity, satisfaction, and happiness, then nothing is going to affect you deeply enough. Not your own suffering, not the suffering of other people, not injustice, not the horrors of the world. Nothing is going to affect you deeply enough so that you'll become deep. And life without depth is, by definition, shallow and meaningless. And there's a problem that's associated with that. Because life is tragic and because life involves suffering, if your philosophy is shallow and meaningless when you suffer, you'll become resentful and hostile and self-critical, and then you'll become cruel and destructive. And so not only is there a necessity for your own mental health to forthrightly confront the deepest questions of life, but if you don't, then you remain a danger to yourself and maybe more importantly to others.